Hello everybody and welcome back to Juno New Origins, where I've been thinking about how we're going to end up approaching this. Now, this is the situation that we currently find ourselves in, and as you can see, I've warped forward a little bit. We're in a better phase here, but I think the timing is going to be a problem for us. Reason being, we've got a bit of an issue here. We're low on our battery amount, right? And we need to, at this point, definitely be planning the mission as if we're not going to use MLI, which we've been using up until this point simply as a time saver, because we could get here, certainly, with just repeated passes. No doubt about that. And I'm going to continue that approach a little bit. So at the periapsis here, I'm going to drop this down to about 160 megameters, I think. That's even a little too much. Okay, let's put this at like 165 here, and this is 155. This is pretty close to where I want this to be. But we're not going to be able to execute this full burn because we don't have... Craft is not capable of producing thrust. This is not accurate. It's been telling me that we have 0% fuel since I loaded this up, but it's not true. Let's just go ahead and line up the planned burn, and let's just go ahead and run this. It should be fine. We should be able to do burn here, but not very long of a burn. Yeah. Are we still in MLI? I don't know if we're still in MLI. I have no idea if that persists through saves or not. I guess we'll find out as soon as we are out of this fuel here. Or we could just do MLI here. Okay, so that turns it on. I want it off at this point. Okay, sounds good. So we're just going to align ourselves here, and we're going to execute this burn as much as we can, which is not going to be very significant. That's understood. I just want to drop this down a little bit. So as soon as we're out of energy, there we go, we're out of energy. Now this views ourselves as being at 98%. Okay, that makes more sense. We got about 17% of the way through that. That makes us a little bit more circularized, and that is ideal for this. So now what I want to do is I want to be treating this as if we are not able to do MLI from here. So we're going to target Juno, and we're going to point at target. So we're going to lock target here. There we go. And now we're going to warp around for a while here. This is going to cause us some, well, potential timing issues, but we need to allow our power to recharge from here. My main concern at this moment is that we're going to enter an orbit. Well, we need to now set Miros as our target. But my main concern right now is we can come to, say, hypothetically, this timing isn't going to be right? But we could come to, say, here at the periapsis, and we could bring this down, and that would be 38.4 meters per second. So that right there is more burn than we can do with this battery charge. That's a significant fundamental issue that we just have to work with, right? So that's understood. That is definitely going to be an issue going forward. So what that means is we need to come over to the periapsis here, and we need to bring this down to about 165. And this will be the majority of the fuel here. But let's just do that. And that burn is going to be a pretty lengthy one, but this is not going to quite burn all of our battery charge. We need to get this into a position like this because we know we're going to have a significant braking issue, right? So let's just go ahead and do that. Then what we need to do is we need to warp this again. So we need to bring this back up to, and I'm going to zoom out here so this is a little less shaky. We need to bring this back up to 5 million X, recharge our batteries. I didn't lock Juno, but it's fine. Doesn't actually matter. Okay. And let's bring this back down to normal speed. So with us at normal speed here, now what I want to do is I want to go here, and I want to plan a burn at the apoapsis, and I want to dial this in just a smidge to like 150. So this is still slightly different orbit, but it's very similar. So that's going to be a 37.924 meter per second burn. We're not actually going to do it quite that much, but we just need to adjust our orbit so that it's very similar here. Okay, let's take this up to a 500x burn. There we go. And we're going to drain off all that battery. Looks good. So we got 74% of the way through that burn. That's fine. I'm content with this. So at this point, what we need to do is I'm going to focus the camera here so that it's not all shaky. And we need to warp around until the planet catches up with us, which is going to take some time. Hang on. We just hopped into the sphere of influence. Okay. So this puts us in a bit of a polar orbit. We don't have much energy at this time. I didn't intend to have an encounter here, but apparently we got an encounter, so that's good to know. A planned burn at the periapsis is going to be interesting. So if we wanted to bring this down, we would definitely need to have a lot more power. I'm wondering what this is going to do to our resulting orbit. Yeah, that's a concern. That's a big concern. Okay. We're going to do what we can here. And then we're going to have to ditch the ion propulsion is the only way to go here. Note how little delta V this is requiring. So that should be reasonably fine. Let's put this into a position that is about like, I want it to be like 20 or 30 kilometers above. So something about like this should do the trick. Okay, so that should be reasonably fine, in theory. Cool. So let's go ahead and execute this burn, but this burn isn't going to be exactly correct. And that's understood. We're only going to have 5% battery charge coming on in here, and it's going to start this burn very, very early. We're going to burn out what we can with the ion engines, but it's not going to be very much. So this is fine. Let's just do this in like 100x. And now we're out of energy. So that's fine. I'm going to get rid of this. We got 1% of that burn done. That's understood. I'm now going to ditch the ion portion of this. I hate to throw this away, but we kind of have to. And now that we're on this stage, we're going to have way, way, way higher burn capabilities. So let's bring this right on down once again to about that 20 kilometer marker. Okay, so that's about 40 kilometers there. This is 22 and 20 kilometers. That'll do. Okay, go ahead and execute that burn. That'll be 36 seconds of burn time. And I want this fuel to be what's being drained here. So we want to drain this, and we want to fill this, like that. Okay, so I think that we should honestly just get rid of the xenon component of this. Take the weight and distribute it as additional methalox for our Wyvern engine, perhaps. That could definitely be doable. So we're in orbit here. This is fine. We did manage to get to this point with the Xenon engine through many, many, many passes. And this encounter was not necessarily, like, intended, right? But it was a... We just brought it down to a very, very similar orbit. Not quite the same, and then just warped until we had an encounter. That is a way that we can do it with utilizing MLI for the sake of time. I don't like it as a way, but it is a possibility. So of course, our next move here is to drop our periapsis on down. We're very highly inclined here as we're coming in because I wasn't planning for this encounter, but we can put ourselves about 20 kilometers above the surface like this. And then we can see that we're mostly going to be on the dark side at this moment. There's another option, which is that we could go to the ascending or descending node, and we could do a radial burn in one of these directions to try to change that a little bit, right? And then we can toss in something like this to get ourselves in a slightly better position for bringing this in. So, I mean, that's a theoretical possibility there. Actually, that's an interesting route to go. But we have way, 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 way too much in terms... I don't want any of this. We have way, 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 way too much in terms of our vertical velocity for that. So I don't actually want to do this, but we could definitely bring this in to be something interesting like about here or so, which would give us much better timing to come in. So that seems reasonably fine. A little bit more retrograde would be okay. Something like this, 130 meters per second. Let's do it. Okay, so we're going to commence that burn. What's our thrust to weight at this altitude? 44? Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so we're just going to bring this right on down. And we're looking to burn off some of this nose cone fuel at this point. Throwing away all that xenon, of course, makes me sad, but here we are. And we're about 50% of the way through this burn now. Of course, we're still struggling to charge our batteries, but we don't actually need to. This isn't electrically fed. As long as we have enough to run our gyros, it's fine. So that's not an issue at this point, but I definitely think we need to completely rethink the xenon portion because the power requirements are just too high. We're carrying a lot of weight in those batteries as well, and I'd like to redistribute all of that weight into probably additional methane, and that will allow our Wyvern engine to push further, which would be pretty ideal, to be honest. So let's come down to the periapsis here, and let's bring this right on down to about a similar 20 kilometers. 19.7 circularization seems reasonably fine, so we would bring this up to there, sure. 59.8 more meters per second, that's okay. I'm wondering what our thrust to weight at this altitude is. 6.06, that's not bad. Okay, that sounds pretty decent. Do we think we're going to have enough Delta V to take off of here and go to another moon? Probably not, would be my guess. But maybe we can fix the xenon issue with some additional tech, but I'm not convinced of that in any meaningful way. So sometime around here, I think, is when we would end up planning our descent burn, which would be orbital velocity of 245 meters per second, right? So that would end up being something kind of akin to this. So we can do something kind of like that. That'll be reasonably fine. I'm mostly just using this as a timer. So let's just go ahead and warp to about here. And let's lock directly to retrograde. I want to be in surface retrograde here. And we can begin our descent at any time we want. We are on the day side, and this seems fine. I'm going to extend our landing legs. Parachutes are kind of useless here, but we can definitely extend landing legs. So that'll be okay. And let's commence this braking burn. So we're just going to get our lateral velocity on down. And we're still burning fuel out of our nose cone at this point. We could try to have this be like an impactor on another body, but yeah, I'm thinking right now about how these solar panel arrays, the panel efficiency on them at this distance is just so low. Where even is Juno? I don't know. Juno is pretty tiny. It feels like Juno should be like up here somewhere, but I don't even see it right now. In fact, Atraitus is about where I'd expect it to be. Maybe we're within Atraitus' shadow at this moment. That would make sense based on the atmospheric haze. So, sure. For now, that's fine. We're currently traveling at about 85 meters per second. I'm just trying to kill our lateral velocity at this moment. Our vertical velocity is not actually all that relevant. So I'm going to let our vertical velocity build up, and we are just looking to get rid of that lateral velocity. So we've got about 30 meters per second left there. Now 20. Now 10. Okay, Now, basically none. I'm just continuing to bring that right on down. Okay, now it's going back up. So we're just going to lock velocity to retrograde now, which is going to be taking us basically straight down. I'm still wondering where Juno is. It feels like it should be right up over here based on the shadowing, and I guess that's fine. So we're just going to head on down towards the surface here, and our current surface velocity is about 25 meters per second. The vast majority of that, of course, is vertical velocity, and we can just fall here for a while. This is absolutely fine for the moment. But yeah, we're only making like 43 watts on our solar panel arrays, and this is mostly due to the distance from Juno. So we're going to need another way to power the ion engines, I suspect. We're definitely going to need another way to power the ion engines. There's no way around it. I don't think the ion engines are actually viable for going this far out. So that is a lesson learned. That will save us a lot of money, I should point out. That'll save us a whole lot of money. So that's absolutely wonderful. And we can toss that into Methalox and hopefully get a little bit further out of those Wyvern engines. The main concern, though, is we burned like 2.5 kilometers per second out of the Xenon engines in order to get to this point, right? So what do we think the odds are that we get 2.5 kilometers per second out of those Wyvern engine? Maybe? I don't know. That's going to require a lot of fuel, I feel like. And the more fuel we carry with, the worse our thrust to weight gets, right? Especially on Ascent. Ascent is going to be a major issue. And speaking of issues, I'm not sure why we had a maneuver indicator there, but sure, that seems fine for now. So we're still descending here, and everything is okay for the moment. I'm wondering about our current power levels. 221 watt hours. Okay. Our engines don't have alternators on them. That doesn't really seem to be a thing in this game, so that's understood. For now, we're going down at about 82 meters per second. We're still coasting here. There's absolutely no reason to be concerned yet. We're about 11 kilometers above ground level at this time, and traveling at about 88 meters per second. I'm going to do a test firing shortly. I want to know what our thrust to weight is. So we're going to do a test fire about now. 5.79. Okay, that's good to know. So we're approaching target speed versus height at this point. We're now going a little too fast. I'm going to start our braking burn at about 5 kilometers and bring us down to about 50 meters per second at that time. And we'll see how long that burn takes us. 5 kilometers should, I think, be too high. So that'll be fine. We're at 7 kilometers right now. And continuing to fall. We are now at 6 kilometers. Commencing safety braking burn now. Okay, so this is definitely slower than I expected in terms of our deceleration, but it should be fine. I hope. We're at 75 meters per second, and we're about 3 kilometers up at this point. So, I mean, we're definitely a little spicy here, but I think we're absolutely fine. We're at 50 meters per second now, and we are 2.5 kilometers up. We're definitely decelerating quickly enough. Yeah, we're going to need to cut engines here fairly soon. Okay, cutting engines. And now we're going to fall until somewhere around 1.5 kilometers, and then probably begin a little bit more of a controlled descent. I don't necessarily love the location where we're coming down. It looks like it's coming down basically right on this box, so that should be reasonably fine. We're at about 1.5 kilometers now, so I'm going to start up a fairly gentle deceleration burn here. I'm going to put it about here. So thrust to weight of slightly over 2. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, so we're just gently decelerating for right now. We're crossing the 1 kilometer threshold. and continuing to gently decelerate. We are out of fuel in the upper tank, and we're starting to drain on the bottom tank, so that's fine. So we're down to 15 meters per second at this time, continuing to decelerate. I'm going to drop us down to about 1.5 thrust to weight. So we're moving at 10 meters per second at this moment. 500 meters up. This is still a little too high on the thrust to weight, dropping us down to 1.08. We just barely want to be slowing down at this point. We are primarily just counteracting the gravity here, but we are very, very slightly decelerating. I'm going to bring us down to 1.04. We're 300 meters up and traveling at 6 meters per second at this time. Cool. We're about 200 meters up now. Still traveling at about 6 meters per second. I'm going to increase our thrust shortly, but I'm going to let us fall at this speed for the moment. Okay, let's increase the thrust slightly to about 1.25. We're slowing down to 5 meters per second. 4 meters per second. Dropping our thrust a little bit. 3 meters per second. 2 meters per second at this time. Dropping thrust further. Okay, we're about 10 meters off of the ground right now. And there's a touchdown. Cool. So we landed on Miros here. We got an achievement for that, and how rare is this? 0.5% of players have this achievement. Okay, like, very few people have ever been to Miros before. Cool. Well, now we are one of them. So at this point, we could try to take off here, and we've got 2.65 kilometers per second. We could try to take off and transfer out to Orcus and see if we could do a similar landing there. Or if we really wanted to get spicy, we could try a transfer to Nebra. Now, Nebra has a whole lot of atmosphere. I don't know what the atmospheric height is. I don't know if we'd have the DV to achieve it, but let's give it a go. So I'm going to set our pitch to 90, but I'm actually going to set it to like 60 here, and let's take off. So we successfully landed here. We're going to leave, and we're going to head off and make our way into orbit. So we can see our apoapsis going up nicely here. I'm going to move ourselves over. I'm going to retract our landing legs like this, and we're going to try to aero brake. I have no idea if this is going to work. This is kind of a Hail Mary, but we'll see if we can get that scratched off the list as well. That would be cool. So for now, we're going to sit at about 15 degrees, and we're building up that apoapsis. I'm going to continue to drop us down to 0 at this point. We can't quite make 0 there. Okay, let's change our screen orientation. No, it won't let us go to 0. 1 degree it is. So we're going to continue to build up this apoapsis, and our vertical speed, as we can see, is dropping. But for now, we just need to build up enough orbital velocity, so that will be absolutely fine. We can see that apoapsis is starting to go up pretty quickly now, and that looks good. We're going to make it into orbit nice and easily here. So I'm going to set up an orbit at around 50 kilometers, I think. And from there, our main issue is going to be our inclination, right? So we'd have to change our inclination for sure. And then we'd have to try to do a transfer and hope that everything is lined up. Okay, so 48, 49, and 50. Actually, we should probably go for a higher orbit than that if we're going to do an inclination change. So what that means is we should sit here like this. And keep an eye on how high of an orbit we can get, because it'll be more efficient to change our inclination the higher orbit we have. Okay, this is starting to feel pretty exponential here. I'm going to take this to about 2,000 kilometers. Actually, I'm going to take it until escape velocity, which is there. Then we're going to backtrack. So we're going to retrograde at this point. We're aligning to retrograde, and then we're going to pull this back ever so slightly. So all we need to do is that. Then we can come up to the apoapsis here. And we can... This is going to need a lot more sensitivity than that. We can do something like this. And we're just looking to circularize this up. So we just need this to go to basically the identical position here, which this is a little too much of. There we go. So 3373, huh? Okay, that's way too little sensitivity. 3373, we'd circularize it about like that. Okay, so that'll be 36 meters per second. Let's execute that. Beautiful. What? What did it just do? This was not what I told it to do. Burn prograde, please. This is now... That was weird. I think it flipped the orbit around and killed our velocity. I want to go this direction. Okay, now I want to be prograde. We'll do this manually. So we're back in orbit now. And yeah, this would be a fine time to do this burn. So let's push this right on out. And again, we're just going to do this manually. Okay, that was a little too much, so we're going to need to pull this back. There we go. Because we're now at escape velocity. We need to be just below escape velocity, which is that. Okay, so now at the descending node here, and this would be this descending node, I want to bring our inclination down to 0. So we're going to have to toss in some retrograde on that to keep ourselves in this position, right? That's increasing our inclination. I want to decrease our inclination. So we're going to bring this down, and this requires very little dV at this point. So we're going to need to make sure to do something like this. There we go. An inclination of 0 would be right about... Okay. This direction. This is close enough. That's close enough. So that's going to be about 27.8 meters per second. Go ahead and execute that. Hopefully it executes it correctly this time. That would be ideal. Yeah, there we go. So it requires very little dV to do this kind of change this high up from the body. So that'll be fine. So now the question is, if we were to set Nebra as our target, it has a very similar delta V, right? Or rather, a very similar inclination. If we were to burn sometime around, hypothetically, here, is this the correct side? Ish. Okay, so if we were to burn hypothetically around there, I'd want to bring us in over this direction, because one of these is going to burn us out, and the other one is going to burn us in, right? Don't execute this, please. Don't do that. Actually, at this point, what I kind of want to do is I kind of want to recircularize. I feel like that's necessary. So at the apoapsis, let's bring this up to 3381. Okay, this is very, very close. That'll do the trick. So we're going to have to warp all the way around, but that's fine. That'll give us some time for a battery to recharge anyway. So we'll recircularize here, and that looks good. Now that that's done, I want to plan a burn approximately here, and that burn is going to take us like that. Okay, so that's taking us the wrong way. So we're going to need to bring this out over... Not there. Oh, this is awkward. It's because it's ending our trajectory here. Okay. I want to burn prograde somewhere around here. There we go. That's a bit more like it. So let's crank this on up. And we can see our closest approach is actually kind of okay. In a weird sort of way. Oh, our timing is not perfect, though. So we're going to have to wait for a better timing than this, but this is probably viable. This would cost us around 994.84, and then we could do an arrow capture / breaking burn. We might be an impactor, or we might burn up in the atmosphere, but that seems theoretically viable. It is time to put a cut in here, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and next episode, we're going to see if we can find a timing for this. That'll be interesting, no doubt about it. You can leave your offerings to the engagement gods in the form of likes, comments, subscribes, and bell ringings, and a very special thank you to all of the channel members for making this video possible, including ALS Gamer, Andy McGar, Dark Horse Xenocyte, Upper Cumberland Gamers, Nick Smarty, Dimitri H, Punching the Microphone, The Lounge STL, and all the rest. And of course, you. Thank you for watching. If you'd like to support the channel, you can click the join button down below the video, and as always, I will see you all next time.